Timothy and my other son Philip and I were a tight little group. They just grew up normal, healthy children, no problems, the occasional cough and cold, and that was about it. And I was blessed. And he was just starting to get out of puff, walking up a small incline, just a few little things that didn't quite sit right. It took about 2 years to get a diagnosis, which is very frustrating, especially as a parent. You do know often your children are going to get sick before they know they're sick themselves. You just know in their eyes or how they're behaving. Anyway, we finally did reach a diagnosis by a cardiologist in where we were at the time. And he said, I think Timothy has pulmonary hypertension. He was 19, and as he said himself, 19-year-olds don't get blood clots.
You mentioned that it took roughly 2 years to diagnose.
Yes.
How important is time in the diagnosis of PAH?
It's imperative. It's imperative. Our doctors are putting out statements now that 12 weeks can make a difference.
Okay.
Early diagnosis and early treatment is the key to longevity with this disease. If you feel that you really are sort of flailing and declining somewhat in the way you can physically manage things, and he was fairly astute and aware that something wasn't right, and so were we. So we kept pushing.
Yeah, of course.
So when we heard the word pulmonary hypertension, you hear hypertension.
Yeah.
Because everyone says, oh well, he's got high blood pressure and you take a blood pressure tablet. But the word pulmonary is what changes the face of this disease. We did a little bit of research, and the research on the internet was somewhat outdated. Timothy actually emailed a professor in Sydney direct and said, can you please see me? So he got himself there because we were sort of pioneering this. So keeping the family together is a really, really important thing, and keeping the family informed is important. Timothy has been gone since 2006 when they said, we aren't going to transplant you. And we were driving up the F3, 6 lanes of traffic, and he opened the door and got out of the car and started walking around the bush and saying, did they just tell me I'm going to die? Yes. Yes, they did. But for them, it was the clinical. These are the facts. This is probably how it's going to go. You're an adult, even though he was a very young adult. And I'll never forget that day walking around the bush after he'd been told that. He did get married and bought a house in that time because we just tried to fit as much in as we could. We teamed up with another family. Timothy ran an MSN group, and I, as a mother, met this other mother, and that's where we sort of came together and joined Pulmonary Hypertension Australia.
As a founder of the society, what are the key messages that you're wanting to impart with people who might be in a similar situation to you?
The internet and social media side of things has expanded so much since Timothy was diagnosed. There is too much misinformation out there. So my advice is to not scatter yourself around the internet. Don't go into personal blogs. Don't go into Facebook pages where one person's running it. Stick with a major registered incorporated association. So I would say pull yourself back and try and get a referral to a centre of excellence. You can still work with your cardiologist in your local town and they can work with the PH team. But keep it simple.
And so, very briefly, what might be your hopes and aspirations for the future?
I would be hoping that if somebody is out of breath and having palpitations and they just don't feel right, that someone doesn't say, oh, well, yes, I was like that when I was pregnant too, or, oh, well, you need to lose a bit of weight, or, oh, do you sit at a computer all day, perhaps you need exercise. It's just a no-brainer as a screening test if you feel fatigued. And I think one of the main things is walking on an incline, not keeping up with the rest of the class. Even if your child is always last in the race and then huffing and puffing, often diagnosed with asthma, often.
Thank you. I understand that all you need, so thank you very much for speaking to me.
That's okay.
Much appreciated.